Okay, good evening. It is August 13th, and I am doing this candlelight video, tonight in remembrance um, of, of someone who lost their life way too young. My cousin's son lost his life suddenly and unexplainably, okay, in California. I'm going to tell the story tonight. His name was Joseph Reyes Leone, and he was from Gilbert, Minnesota, and he was living in the Los Angeles area, Glendale, California. And this is my older cousin's son. He was 31 years old. He lost his life on June 30th in California, and he died suddenly, and it's still like unexplained. Okay, so there was a celebration of life on this end, but I find it very unusual what happened here, so I want to do a story on it here. Joey was born November 5th, 1990 to Danny Reyes, who is my cousin, and Joseph Leone in Minneapolis. And he was just a young kid, and he's done all kinds of things in his life, and then he had an aspiration for music, so he moved out to California. And I'm also a musician, so I completely understand his love for music. So he I'm just going to tell his story a little bit here, because if anybody has any information about him, I want to know. So he graduated from Virginia High School in Wasabi Range College in 2009. Joey earned his Eagle Scout, in which he created a bog walk at Camp Chickagee at the age of 18. He graduated from Virginia High School and Wasabi Range College in 2009. Okay. This is a very educated kid. Okay. His passion and dream was music, so he moved to Los Angeles, California, where he attended the Los Angeles Recording School and graduated on September 26, 2010. After that, Joey's internship was at the Nightbird Recording Studio in LA as an assistant audio engineer, where he had the opportunity to work with a number of iconic musicians. I don't know who those musicians were exactly. Joey had talents beyond our recognition. Joey went back to college at the University of Dominguez to finish his college credits while working at the Songbird Carnia as a ceramist. He became a ceramist. He was a very artistic person. He handcrafted instruments. In between jobs, he also became a locksmith, a plumber, and a security guard, and an internship for movies, and a sound man for movies, videotaping for new and upcoming musicians. Most recently, he was employed as an accountant for Deluxe Company in Deluxe, California. Joey went back to school to receive his enrolled agent license and become a national tax expert, where he operated his tax business called Brass Tax. Joey owned his own brand and recording studio called The Resin Ants, with which he produced several copyrighted music. He was an educator in the recording and music industry. Okay, this is a very noble person from Minnesota who's a very knowledgeable and skilled and smart, and he died suddenly at age 31. And this is a very tragedy to my family, and we don't know what happened still. Okay, I'm in contact with his mother, Danny Reyes, and the autopsy report is still not back as to how he died suddenly in Glendale, California. Okay, so this is what concerns me, is that he apparently, unbeknownst to anyone in his family, was an advocate of Planned Parenthood, women's rights, and human rights as a whole, and he generously generated these passions. Among his donations were Planned Parenthood as a beneficiary of his life insurance policy. So what kind of 31-year-old would dedicate his life insurance policy to Planned Parenthood? So this is where I found this whole obituary very suspicious. Okay, and anybody in their right mind would find this suspicious. Okay, so his mom, Danny Reyes, is trying to find out, more details of what happened surrounding his death. And the coroner's report takes about 60 days. He died June 30th, suddenly. But it sounds to me very suspicious. And, you have to understand that there's a whole dark cult in California that is evil beyond what most people will ever imagine. Okay, that's why I moved away from California. I lived out there way back in 93, 94. I lived out there. I was trying to pursue music. I went to a music school for a while and lived up there for a while, and I just couldn't handle the energy out there. I moved back to Minnesota. Okay, there's a real evil energy out there. And, everybody goes out there to try to become a star or whatever. I was in the 1994 Northridge earthquake in California. I was living in Santa Monica at the time. So I personally went to the to School of Music in Hollywood for a year. Myself, I attended that because I'm also a musician, and I played in a band out there and stuff like that. But you have to understand this is like a real, if you're not into the whole dark cult and stuff, you can't make it as a musician there, unless you're, they have to understand there's a whole nother synergy going on that the average person doesn't know about. So I think this is what happened to my poor cousin's son here in there. He was just trying to make it as a musician because that was his love, was music. And he got caught up in this dark cult, and I think that's what happened to him. And I am very concerned about what happened to him, and I'm doing this video dedicated to him. His name is Joseph Reyes Leone. Okay, so it's very concerning to our family right now. So the other thing that I want to talk about tonight is that there was a primary election that just happened here in Minnesota where there was this guy running against Keith Ellison, and we were all very hopeful that he would win, but he didn't. Doug, let's see. Okay, so there was guy running against Keith Ellison, and we all thought he was going to win, and then he didn't win. But Doug, I forgot what his last name was. Okay, but you have to understand, if we don't fix 2020, we're never going to fix any election coming forward, So Doug Wortlow, I think is his name. So everybody that I know voted for this guy. Okay. Doug Wardlow. Okay, he was backed by Trump and Michael Lindell and everybody that I know voted for him. So we're trying to get a new attorney general in here because Keith Ellison was backed by George Soros. You have to understand there's a few politicians here in Minnesota that were backed by George Soros money. And one of them was Keith Ellison and the other one was Amy Klobuchar. Okay, so Keith Ellison, you have to understand, let's see, George, okay, so the person that has the power to oversee these elections is apparently the Secretary of State. Okay, so if there was some kind of fraudulence going on here with this Doug Wardlow election against Keith Ellison, the person to ask would be the Minnesota Secretary of State, and his name would be Steve Simone. So if he's also a criminal like the rest of them are, then you have a total fraud going on in your entire state. This is what you have to understand. It goes all the way up. See, they purposely do this. George Soros has purposely targeted certain states, certain countries, and he takes down the entire leadership and corrupts them. This is how they corrupt from within. Okay, so the Minnesota Secretary of State is named Steve Simone. So if he did something to make this election unfair, or then we for sure won't have any kind of fair election as far as the new Attorney General. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with in Minnesota. And then we also have a corrupt senator named Amy Klobuchar. So I have dealt with her in the past, and I have talked about her in the past. When I first moved back to Minnesota in 2013, I had actually documented evidence that I was being illegally followed, illegally pushed out of the military, illegally harassed, all kinds of stuff that I turned into her office in Minnesota. It was up to her. It's up to her. You have to understand. It's up to her, the senators. That's their job, to protect the military. Like, I had evidence that I was being illegally pushed out of the military for no reason and being harassed and almost murdered. And I turned all this evidence into Amy Klobuchar's office when I first moved back to Minnesota, where I'm from Arizona, and she did nothing to help me in any way. Okay, so Amy Klobuchar is a total, it is a part of the evil agenda with John McCain and Lindsey Graham, and she's in pictures with them all the time. She's part of the Khazarian Mafia. Senator Amy Klobuchar is extremely dangerous, and so I've done videos before regarding when I was being harassed, trying to get a job at Fleet Farm. I was just trying to get my check, and then I looked up certain situations about Fleet Farm, and Fleet Farm is a part of the Democratic Farm Labor Party, and Amy Klobuchar is part of the Democratic Farm Labor Party. So that tells me personally exactly who is the one who caused me problems at Fleet Farm, and that would be Amy Klobuchar. Okay, this is not a nice person. This is a Democrat evil witch who we have as a senator in Minnesota. Okay, so you have to understand who these people are. And I don't have any reason to hide what I'm saying. This is just what it is. Like, these are not good people. These are people put in by Soros. that are backed by evil money, is what I'm saying. Okay? But if we don't get the 2020 election fixed, we can't expect to fix this election now. You know, that's the whole, you know, that's the problem, is that we haven't fixed the whole problem with the voting system in general. So we're going to continue to have fraudulent elections. Okay, so Amy Klobuchar is part of the Minnesota United States Senator, senior senator, and also a member of the Minnesota Democratic Farm Labor Party, which also is Fleet Farm is a part of. And then I had a problem with Fleet Farm here in Minnesota, where I tried to apply for just a temporary job there, and they gave me all kinds of a hard time just trying to get one paycheck. And they're part of the Democratic Labor. Okay, so you have to understand there's a lot of like weird labor stuff going on in Minnesota where you know, certain people just are having a hard time getting any kind of legitimate pay by any kind of Democrat-run company and stuff like that. And it's like, if people want to work, they just get treated so badly. It's just, you know, you have to understand there's a lot of weird stuff going on right now, and you know, this is what's going on in Minnesota. But you know, it's like they need people, but then they treat people like crap, you know. So you have to understand there's weird things that most people are talking about. Okay, thank you. God bless.